Welcome back to the deep dive, where well, you know the deal by now. We take the best stuff from books and all that and try to cram it into your brain really
That's the
fast.
best way to learn stuff, for sure.
Today we're diving deep into Cal Newport's book, Deep Work: Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World.
I love this book.
Yeah, it's a really good one, and honestly, I need this right now. I feel like it is so hard to just focus these days, right? Like with
Okay.
everything going on, is it even possible to really get the most out of our brains with all this going on?
Well, that's what Newport tries to answer in this book, right? He says that this deep work thing, being able to like really, really focus on something difficult,
Yeah.
that's becoming like a superpower.
So it's like more than just like, being a workaholic. It's about being like laser focused when you actually sit down to work.
Yeah, exactly. And he contrasts that with what he calls shallow work, which is like, just kind of going through the motions, like to answer emails and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Or like meetings that could have been emails.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All of that.
Okay, so like I think most of us have like a mix of that in our day, the deep work and the shallow work.
Right.
But why should we even care about like making the deep work more important? Like, is it really that valuable?
Well, Newport says it is, and in a bunch of different ways. So first of all, he says it's becoming more and more rare. And, think about it. We've got these open offices and people are getting notifications all the time.
All the time.
And it's so easy to just like, check social media really quick.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like everything around us is working against us, being able to do this deep work stuff.
Yeah, it's true. It really feels like sometimes my brain is like a web browser with like, a zillion tabs open.
Million tabs open.
But like if everyone's having this problem, then how does anyone get ahead by using deep work?
Well, because if you can master it, you're already ahead of everyone else, right?
Uh-huh.
So in this kind of like information world we live in now, the people who can learn complicated things fast
Right.
and like get a lot done, those are the ones who really stand out.
So it's not just working hard, it's like working smart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the book uses the example of Nate Silver.
Oh, yeah.
So he's this data journalist guy who predicted the 2012 election in all 50 states.
Yeah.
And he did that by really deeply understanding statistics, and then he used that to look at like huge amounts of data.
Wow.
And like most people wouldn't even know where to start with that.
No, not at all. So that's like some serious brain power.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that most of us aren't going to be trying to predict elections anytime soon.
Right.
So is deep work really useful for like, normal people? Like, I don't know, someone in like marketing or design or something like that?
Oh, yeah, totally. And the book also talks about David Heinemeier Hansson.
Okay.
So this guy made Ruby on Rails, which is this like really popular tool for building websites.
Okay.
And he's like a total rock star in that world now. Like he can basically choose any project he wants to work on, and he makes a ton of money.
Wow.
And it's all thanks to his ability to like really focus and produce high quality stuff.
So like the harder the work or the more deep the work, the bigger the reward kind of.
Pretty much, yeah. Like it's getting harder and harder to like stand out from the crowd, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But deep work is one of the only ways to actually get really good at something.
Okay. I'm seeing the like business case for it, I guess.
Right.
But Newport also talks about how it's more than just making money, right?
Yeah.
Like there's something about deep work that actually changes your brain.
Yeah, so the book talks about the neuroscience of it. And it explains how like when you really focus on something,
Yeah.
it actually makes the myelin sheath around your neurons stronger.
Oh, wow. I don't even know what that is.
So it's basically making your brain connections faster and more efficient.
So it's like rewiring our brains to get better at focusing.
Pretty much.
I feel smarter already.
Right. So like, have you ever gotten so into something that you completely lose track of time?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Like maybe you're writing or coding or designing something, anything that like really pulls you in.
Yeah, sometimes I get so into writing a script that I forget to eat lunch.
That's exactly what psychologists call flow. And like studies have shown that it's like directly connected to happiness
Great.
and feeling fulfilled. And like deep work is like the key to getting into that flow state.
That's so cool. So it's like not only can it make you better at what you do, but it can actually make you happier doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it also connects to like a more philosophical argument for deep work too.
Okay.
So like think about like skilled craftspeople, like
Like wood carvers or something.
yeah, like wood carvers or blacksmiths. They spend years and years like honing their craft,
Right.
really focusing on every little detail.
It's like that old saying, right? It's not the destination, it's the journey.
Exactly.
But how do we even find time for deep work in our lives? Like, I feel like my life is already so busy,
Right.
just keeping up with everything. I have a full-time job.
Yeah, that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah, okay.
So Newport says that there's no one right way to do deep work. It's all about finding a strategy that works for you and your personality and your lifestyle.
Right.
And he calls this your depth philosophy.
So it's like choosing your fighting style. Like, are you a kung fu master or like a jujitsu expert?
I like that.
Yeah.
And he lays out a bunch of different philosophies,
Okay.
and each one has its own good things and bad things. So for example, there's the monastic approach.
Mastic.
Yeah. And that one's basically like going off the grid and just dedicating yourself completely to deep work.
Oh, wow. That's intense. Like living in a silent retreat or something. Is that even possible for most people?
Probably not
Yeah.
unless you're like a novelist who can just disappear for months at a time to write a book.
Right.
But there are other options too. There's the bimodal philosophy.
Bimodal?
Yeah, so that one's like you split your time between super intense deep work
Okay.
and then more flexible time for shallow work.
Okay.
So it's kind of like switching back and forth between sprinting and jogging.
Okay, that makes sense. I guess that's more realistic for most people.
Right.
Are there any examples of people doing this in real life?
Oh yeah, totally. So um Adam Grant.
Oh, yeah, love him.
Yeah, he's great. So he's a professor at Wharton, and he wrote that book, Give and Take.
Right.
And he uses this approach. So he blocks off these chunks of time to do research and write.
Oh.
But then he also makes time for meeting with students and colleagues and stuff.
So it's like you're saying it's about finding a balance between going deep and staying connected to the world.
Yeah, exactly.
What are some other philosophies?
So there's the rhythmic approach,
Okay.
and that one's all about making doc work a habit.
Okay.
Like maybe blocking off an hour every morning before things get crazy.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a daily meditation practice, but for your work.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's also the journalistic style, where you just kind of squeeze deep work in whenever you can.
Okay.
Like a journalist trying to file a story before deadline.
Oh, yeah. That sounds more like my style, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But so how do we actually make deep work a habit?
Right.
Like, it's easy to say we want to focus,
Yeah.
but then, life happens.
Right. Well, one of the best things you can do is ritualize your deep work.
Ritualize.
Yeah. So it's kind of like setting the stage for your brain to get into focus mode.
So like having a specific routine or something?
Exactly. It could be something as simple as always working the same spot or listening to the same playlist.
Okay.
Or even lighting a certain candle.
Mm-hmm.
The key is just to be consistent.
Yeah, I remember reading about J.K. Rowling checking into a fancy hotel to finish the last Harry Potter book.
Oh, yeah.
That's a pretty extreme ritual, but I guess it worked.
Totally. Grand gestures like that can be really powerful.
Right.
And speaking of grand gestures, let's talk about collaboration.
Collaboration. I thought deep work was all about working alone.
It often is, but Newport makes a really interesting point about how structured collaboration can actually be super valuable. And he calls it the hub and spoke model.
Hub and spoke. Okay, I'm picturing a bicycle wheel. What does that mean?
You got it.
Yeah.
So think of the hub as those times when you're gathering inspiration or brainstorming with people or getting feedback.
Okay.
But then you need to retreat to the spoke to do the deep work of actually developing those ideas.
So it's like using collaboration strategically, not let it become a distraction.
Exactly. He even talks about how the MIT Data Center,
Oh, yeah.
it was designed to encourage these random run-ins between researchers.
Right.
But then all the professors ended up demanding soundproof offices.
Really?
Yeah, because they realized that they needed protected space to do deep work.
That's so funny. Okay, so we've got our rituals, we've got our collaboration strategy.
Right.
What else can we do to make deep work a habit?
But it almost feels like we need to treat it like a business
Okay.
with goals and deadlines and stuff.
Yeah.
And Newport actually recommends using this business framework called the 4 disciplines of execution.
Okay, I've never heard of that. Break it down for me.
Okay, so the first discipline is focus on the wildly important.
Okay.
So it's what are the 1 or 2 goals that really matter for your deep work?
Okay.
Not just busy work, but the stuff that will actually make a difference.
So instead of saying oh, I need to be more productive,
Right.
it's identifying a specific outcome, like writing a book or something.
Yes, exactly. And then the second discipline is act on the lead measures.
Lead measures. Okay.
So this one's about tracking the activities that actually drive those goals,
Mm-hmm.
not just the end result.
So instead of just focusing on getting a promotion or whatever.
Yeah.
I would focus on like how many hours I'm spending doing deep work each week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the third discipline is keep a compelling scoreboard.
A scoreboard.
Yeah. So it's all about making your progress visible, so it could be like a chart or a spreadsheet,
Okay.
whatever works for you.
I like that. It's like a visual reminder of like what you're working towards.
Exactly. And then the final discipline is create a cadence of accountability.
Okay.
So this one's about having like regular check-ins with yourself or even with like a friend or a colleague
Okay.
to like review your progress and stay on track.
So even though deep work is often solitary, it kind of helps to have someone in your corner cheering you on.
Right.
But with all this focus on like intense work, do we ever get to rest?
That's a great question. And
Yeah.
Newport actually talks about that a lot.
Yeah.
He's a big believer in like shutting down completely at the end of the day.
Okay, so like a hard stop, no work emails, no checking social media, just totally unplugging.
Exactly. It might seem counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but giving your brain a break actually makes you way more productive in the long run.
I know that feeling of just being fried at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But how does just stopping work actually help?
Well, for one thing, it lets your brain recharge.
Okay.
Just like your muscles need rest after a workout,
Yeah.
your brain needs downtime to like consolidate memories and process information.
So it's not just about avoiding burnout. It's actually about letting our brains like do their thing behind the scenes.
Exactly. It also gives your unconscious mind time to like work on problems in the background.
Okay.
Have you ever had like an aha moment
Oh yeah, all the
when you're
time.
taking a shower or going for a walk?
It's like my brain is working on a puzzle even when I'm not thinking about it.
That's exactly it. And then finally,
Hmm.
shutting down helps prevent decision fatigue.
Decision fatigue.
Yeah, so when you're constantly bombarded with choices,
Right.
your willpower gets depleted.
Yeah.
And then it's harder to focus.
That makes sense. Okay, I'm sold on the power of downtime.
Good.
But what about those times when we're just like really struggling to focus, even when we are well rested?
Yeah.
Are there any tips for like training our brains to be more attentive?
There are a few things you can try.
Mm-hmm.
One that Newport highlights is productive meditation.
Productive meditation. Isn't meditation all about like clearing your mind?
Yeah, so this is a little different. Instead of just emptying your mind, you're focusing your attention on a specific problem you're trying to solve.
So it's like taking that walk, but instead of just enjoying the scenery, you're using that time to like actively work through a challenge.
Exactly. And Newport himself used this technique to like outline his last book.
Yeah.
He would go on walks and just mentally work through the structure and the arguments and all that.
He turned his walks into deep work sessions. That's impressive.
Right. And then another brain training technique is memory training.
Memory training.
Yeah, it sounds kind of old school,
Yeah.
but it's really about building mental muscle.
So not just memorizing random facts, but actually improving our ability to focus.
Exactly. He even suggests trying to memorize a shuffled deck of cards.
Really?
Yeah, it's a fun challenge, and it helps you practice like holding information in your mind and retrieving it quickly.
Okay. I might have to try that one. But what about all the distractions around us, like especially technology? It feels like it's constantly attacking our attention spans.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way sometimes. Like our phones are these little dopamine slot machines just like constantly begging for our attention.
Yeah, for sure. But Newport's not saying we have to like, go live in a cave and get rid of all technology.
Right, okay.
It's more about being intentional with it. He calls it like taming the distractions.
Okay.
So one thing he suggests is like scheduling internet blocks.
Okay, so instead of just randomly checking email and social media all day,
Right.
we actually like set aside specific times for that stuff.
Exactly. It helps to like minimize those little like distractions that can break your focus.
Okay.
He also recommends, and this one might sound kind of crazy, but like quitting social media altogether.
Whoa, cold turkey.
That,
What about people who use social media for work?
Yeah, he talks about that too. It's not necessarily about like never using it again, but he challenges people to do at least like a 30-day experiment
Okay.
to see how it affects their focus and productivity.
I bet that would be pretty eye-opening for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't even realize how much time I'm wasting scrolling until I like actually make myself stop.
Right.
But even without social media, there's still email. Like that feels like the ultimate productivity killer.
Ugh. Yeah. Email. Newport has some good strategies for that too, so he's a big fan of using sender filters.
So like making rules so only the most important emails actually go to my inbox.
Yeah, exactly. It helps to cut down on the noise and like prioritize the stuff that actually matters.
Right.
He also suggests putting more effort into the emails you DO send.
More effort. How so?
It's about making sure that like every email is clear and concise and like tells people exactly what you need from them.
Okay.
So by being more thoughtful up front, you can often avoid these long email chains that just like eat up your time.
That's so true. Sometimes I feel like I spend more time on email than I do on actual work.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So we're being strategic about social media. We're taming the email beast.
Right. What about the overall structure of our workday? Like, how do we actually make time for deep work when it feels like there's always something demanding our attention?
Well, Newport suggests something he calls fixed schedule productivity.
Fixed schedule productivity.
You ever imagine in like a super strict calendar with no room for error? What is that?
It's not as rigid as it sounds like. The basic idea is that you set a firm end time for your workday,
Okay.
and then you work backward to figure out how to fit everything in.
So it's like setting a deadline for yourself, which forces you to be more efficient with your time.
Exactly. It's crazy how much more focused you become when you know you only have a limited amount of time to get stuff done.
Yeah, that's true.
Newport himself uses this approach, and he's
Well,
a professor, so he's got a pretty demanding schedule.
wow, that's impressive. So he's basically saying that by limiting our work hours, we can actually increase our output.
Yeah, pretty much.
But here's the thing, a lot of workplaces seem to reward being busy rather than actually being productive.
Right. So how do we convince people that deep work is important when everyone else seems to value shallow work?
Yeah, that's the challenge. And Newport talks about that directly. He says that deep work is kind of like a form of rebellion against that culture.
So it's about like pushing back against the constant demands on our attention and choosing to focus on what really matters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in the long run, that's what leads to work that's actually valuable.
Yeah.
You know, the kind that makes a real impact.
I love that it's like saying, I'm not just going to go with the flow. I'm going to swim against the current and create something truly meaningful.
And that's a great way to put it. And that's really the core message of this book. Deep work isn't just a productivity hack.
Right.
It's a way to live a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
Well, I don't know about you, but I am feeling super inspired to go deep. Thanks so much for breaking all this down with me.
Yeah, of course, it's been fun. And remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about progress.
Hmm.
Even small steps towards deeper work can make a big difference.
That's great advice. So for everyone listening out there, think about one small change you can make this week to cultivate more deep work in your life. Maybe it's scheduling an internet block, maybe it's creating a shutdown ritual, or maybe it's just taking a walk without your phone to let your mind wander, whatever it is. Embrace the power of deep work and see what you can create. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive, and until next time, keep diving deep.